so we thought we knew what it was like to find housing in a big city. We came here in April, had a 1-month sublet, and we thought that would be plenty of time. We did find a place, but it was in like our 4th week, and we were feeling a lot of pressure. We thought we might have to live in a hotel for a while.
You're listening to How to Move to New York City, an instruction manual for the biggest move of your life. I interviewed New Yorkers, new and seasoned, from across every borough on the topics that matter most when integrating into a new place. Today I share what New Yorkers say about securing your first apartment.
But I just remember having to give like thousands and thousands of dollars up front. So much so that like my bank, when I was transferring to the broker, was like, actually, you can't do this much in one day. So that was a whole thing.
You'll hear from a real estate broker and New Yorkers about how to land where you want to and put your best foot forward in the search. Everyone knows it's pretty much a seller's market, so you really have to show up and be thoughtful.
Every apartment that you visit that you're trying to look for, there will probably be like at least another 5 people that are also looking at it.
The New York City housing market is heartless, okay? You're gonna have to shell out as much money as they can possibly squeeze out of you, and you're most attractive if you have a very high credit score and a ton of money. And don't worry if you don't have either. You might have to use what is called the guarantor, which we'll talk about later.
My building has 11 people in it, 10 units. We're all in a group chat together. We hang out. We all have spare keys to each other's apartments. And that only happens because we started talking to each other.
Now, let's get into it. There is so much to cover when it comes to finding an apartment in New York City, so I'm not going to cover everything. This is just a little flavor primer situation. Here's what I will talk about: how to get started, how to find listings based on your established criteria, how to spot and avoid scams, how to find roommates, how to have the best chances at getting the apartment you applied for, how much money you need, and how to read a lease and negotiate changes. How do you get started? Start by doing some soul searching and think about what are your criteria. You're going to use these criteria to narrow in on the listings that will apply to you. So if you know exactly where you want to live, great, you can narrow down into that area. If you know what your budget is, great, narrow down based on that. If you have a pet, you'll need to narrow down based on that. So think about your requirements and then think about your negotiables. So you might want to have laundry in the apartment, but there's not many apartments that have laundry in them. And you might want a dishwasher, but likewise, you might have to compromise on that. Here's Deb and Sydney talking about how they approach this in their own search.
We started, like what's the smallest apartment we can live with, and what's the largest budget we think we can come up with, and what subway lines serve this neighborhood that our daughter lives in. And so we started with making a rubric that would help us kind of narrow it down. So we'd go to open houses and we'd find ourselves in neighborhoods we'd never been to, like this neighborhood, or like Clinton Hill or Sunset Park, places we knew about but hadn't visited. And that helped us see, what does this place feel like? What does it look like? What's the atmosphere? And we eventually narrowed it down to 2 or 3 neighborhoods that seemed like good bets.
I started in New York City in the Upper East Side, and I lived there for just under a year before making the choice that I wanted to go and be in Harlem. The experience of the Upper East Side street, just like the kinds of people who were there, particularly where I was like 92nd and 3rd. It's a very quiet street. It's not that there's not a lot going on. Like, people are moving, there are businesses, there's a nail salon, there's a laundromat, there's like a restaurant/bar on the corner. Like, life is happening, but the kind of life that's happening, the kinds of people, it's a lot of families, it's a lot of people who are of means, like they have a good amount of money. And so that's like one example of a New York City street. But now where I am, it's like right off the 125th Street subway station on the ABCD line. And I live like right outside of the station practically. And so there's very different because it's like, one, right outside of a subway, two, all sorts of people living there. There's a club on my block. And so I feel like I hear people at different times of day, and like I think the proximity for me to struggle feels closer, and that was like such a noticeable change. It just feels like these are some examples of what New York is.
Think about what you want to be close to. Are you near transit? Is noise a concern? Do you want to be near a certain institution? So just think about what your life would look like, and that should shape where you're looking and what you're looking for. Okay, great. You have your criteria. Now you're ready to look for apartment listings. So the first thing you want to do is to tell everyone you know that you are moving to New York, because if they themselves are not moving to New York, they probably know someone else who is, and who has recently gone through the process or who is about to go through the process. So reach out to all of your network and say, hey, I'm thinking about moving to New York. Do you know anyone who has? I'd love to talk to them about it. And get as much knowledge as you can within your network. That could even lead to an apartment itself. So you could skip over a lot of the stress by just tapping into connection you already have. But if you're just like
Everybody else looking on the internet.
take that criteria and open Street Easy, because Street Easy, as I'll get into, is where virtually all the apartment listings live. Here's Andre, a licensed real estate broker, talking about why that is.
Yeah, I mean, typically most people look on Street Easy. It's a company owned by Zillow. It's really popular here in New York. For renters, it's a great tool. It's a great tool. And the thing about Zillow is that you have to pay as a real estate agent. You have to pay like $7 a day to have your listing up. So you're not going to have just random listings up that aren't active, because you charge for every single day that they're up. Whereas some other sites, they're free. And so a lot of times you'll just see stuff that's been there for months and months. And you're just like, hey, I'd love to check this place out. And they're like, that place hasn't been available in like 7 months. And you're like, well, why is it there? And they're like, I have no idea. And it's because these other sites, usually they're just not as well funded. Street Easy's got the $6 a day per listing money, you know?
So let's jump into Street Easy and take a look around.
So first you want to pick the neighborhood that you want to live in. And you'll see a map view on the right, and you can zoom in and out on that. You'll see your price, your bed and bathroom, your pet preferences, and amenities preferences. And you can even dig in a bit deeper on further preferences like building type or nearby transit, etc. Once you have that set, go ahead and set up a saved search.
And as we'll get into, you have to act fast. So as soon as you see something, it very well could be rented the very next day. Be ready to hop on it. Before you hop on it, you need to know how to spot the scams.
Don't let social media be like, oh my God, New York's the best fucking place ever. Like those $1,000 like apartment listings you see on Instagram, that's bullshit. The landlord probably gonna snake the out you. Have your wits about yourself, because you know New York is built upon like being solid.
That was Eddie in the Bronx. New York, unfortunately, is rife with scammers because there's big money involved and there's a lot of time pressure. And in those conditions, scammers know that they can take advantage of people. So the bottom line is trust your gut, but here are some tips from Andre and others about how to navigate and avoid scams.
So how not to get scammed, right? Hire a real estate agent is the best way.
Yeah.
Because let's say I'm representing a tenant, right? Like, no one is going to try to scam me because they know I know better. But even if they did try to scam my client, for example, like they ask my client to Venmo them something, I'm going to be like, you're absolutely not going to ask my client for a good faith deposit because that's illegal as of June 2019 with the Tenant Protection Act. Like, this person's acting weird. Let me look at their pocket card. Let me check them out. Are they licensed? Let me call up their managing director. Who is this person? What's the deal with these people? Like, I can sniff out when someone's shady right away. In a normal transaction, you go, you see the place, you know, generally like the broker's there. You know, you're communicating with someone who's a licensed broker. There's an email address that is like a brokerage email address.
Official.
Andre.mastrogiacomo@corcoran.com.
Yeah.
Right? I even shortened it. I created a shortened version because my last name is so crazy. Andre.mastro@corcoran.com. Both work, by the way, you know. A lot of times people who scam, they ask for money that's not associated directly with the lease signing. They'll ask for stuff like, oh, well, if you pay me this, I'll make sure you get it gets taken off the market. Typically, it's not money directly to the brokerage.
The number one rule when it comes to not getting scammed is to never send money to someone claiming to be a broker or owner before a lease is signed and before you've actually checked to make sure that the person who says they're the owner is the actual owner, not posing as one, and the person who says that they're the broker is actually a licensed broker that works for a legit brokerage.
Now, the real estate agent can transport that money, but they can't do what's called commingling. So they can't take that money into their bank account and mix it up with their funds. I mean, they're just supposed to give that money directly to the landlord. And it doesn't have that guy's name on it. It's not like, oh, I'm writing a check to Andre Mastro Giacomo. It's like I'm writing a check to Bob Smith, the landlord. Or 123 Smith Street, LLC, or whatever. You know what I mean? Directly, not to that agent as an individual. But if you're going directly to an owner without a real estate agent even representing you, I wouldn't necessarily recommend it. But if you do your research and you do your discovery and you identify that they're legitimately the owner, you're good. That person's authorized to rent you that property. But you don't want to be renting from someone who isn't the owner.
Right.
Because then they're just going to disappear into oblivion. And then the real owner is going to be like, well, I don't know who you dealt with, but it's not me.
Right.
That's happened to people. Don't pay money without seeing a lease. And you sign the lease, and now you've got a lease. You've got a legal document. Someone does something funny, you take that to your lawyer, you're like, or you go to small claims court, you're like, hey, I've got this person's license number.
Right.
I can just put it down. I've got this person's LLC. I can just put it down. When you've got all that information, no one's going to try to scam you, because now you're going to sue them. You're going to win.
Now, in 2025, renters no longer need to pay for broker's fees. So if anyone is trying to get you to pay them a broker fee, that is a scammer. The property owners are required to pay that broker fee. Here's Andre with the last bit of information about navigating scams.
So my StreetEasy account got hacked. This is how to avoid this scam, right? If you see in the StreetEasy description, somebody puts their name and number in that description, absolutely do not go by that information. They lowered the price to get 1 million inquiries. So you always go by their contact info right here through StreetEasy. I contact them directly through StreetEasy.
Okay, if something seems too good to be true, it probably is. So just trust your gut and keep verifying what you're gathering from interactions with people and documents, and just make sure they check out. If you want to read more about how to spot a scam, the New York State website has additional tips on here.
Okay, enough of that. Now on to something a little bit more fun, how to find roommates.
Here's Sydney talking about how she had to scramble to find roommates.
I was trying to graduate grad school and transition out because I had a start date for my job here that was July 2022. So I had first to figure out who am I going to live with because of this switch up with the whole relationship thing not working out. Making the choice to live with a set of roommates who I would say, I said, my former grad school classmate, she and I weren't friends, we were classmates, right? And so I was I'm in a rough spot where I'm just trying to find someone to live with. I have a job offer. I need to go. And I need to find people to live with because I cannot live alone in this city. That's a whole nother thing. With cost of living as someone who is single, right? And was newly single at the time.
Very, very few people can afford to live alone in New York City. Okay, so with rents that are, $3,000, $4,000 or up for a single bedroom or a studio, and you're probably not making $200,000, it's extremely likely that you'll need to find a roommate. You must look for a place to find roommates. There are several websites that will vet people. Here's a list. Roomie, Spare Room, Rainbow Roommates is tailored to the queer community, Listing Project, Digs, and sometimes brokerages themselves will have apartments where someone's just looking for a roommate. You can also look at Nooklin. If that list isn't long enough, you can always look at the StreetEasy guide for how to find roommates and make sure they're normal people to a certain degree. So take a gander there, check it out, see what suits your needs. Okay, so now say you have found a set of listings that you know are legit, feel good about who the brokerage is, and you're ready to go visit either by yourself or with your roommate. Whoever shows up early at that thing is going to have the advantage. And here's Sydney talking about how being in person was so important.
One of the best things when it comes to moving into New York City is having the ability to be on the ground, because a lot of places that you're looking for want tenants to or prospective tenants to come in to see the space. And once I figured that I ended up moving in with a grad school classmate and her undergrad friend. One of them was here on the ground in New York City. So he was the one who was able to do the work of okay, we found this place that we're interested in. I'm gonna go do the viewing. And so he would FaceTime us in the midst of that, and we would figure out okay, do we like this one? Do we not? Is it living up to the profile that we see online?
And similarly, Deb had to look without David there, and they just had to jump on something.
And by that time I had a realtor, and she said, oh yeah, we can find you a place. I said, yeah, right. And I figured we'd probably rent, but kept looking and found this place, and David never saw it. So we had a Zoom call, and he said, well, what do you think? And I said, well, if it's still on the market by the time you come next time, I want you to look at it. He said, if you really like it, go ahead and get it.
Here's Alex talking about his advice for finding an apartment.
So my biggest piece of advice would be, if you're not familiar with New York, definitely get a 3-month sublet and give yourself plenty of time to get to know the neighborhoods, and anticipate that it could take 2 to 3 months, even once you start aggressively searching for a place, to actually find a place.
So being in person is a requirement. Now, once you're there, you want to be observant. You want to make sure that the basics are working. You want to check the condition of the apartment and get a sense for if it's actually somewhere you could be comfortable living, and it seems like a place that's well kept.
And this was really important. I actually got an Airbnb for about a month and a half. I split it with a friend, so that was viable to do. And during that time, that was the time that I gave myself to go out and look for apartments. 1 month and a half was enough to go and find the apartment, as long as I was really on top of searching and visiting. And the reason I did this whole Airbnb thing to come here and be able to look for places is because I would really not recommend signing off on anything before you see the apartment. There's a lot of shady stuff happening out there, a lot of low quality apartments, really old stuff, or stuff that's really, you're paying a lot of money for something that's broken or just outright bad in a bad neighborhood. The photos will look amazing, but then when you come here, the water tap doesn't work, the windows are broken. I don't know, there's no heating. You never know, right? So you have to come and visit. Whatever you do, never sign off on anything before you physically look at what you're getting into.
That was Tomas talking about his experience visiting apartments. You have to remember that you're making a first impression, and that will define whether a broker goes with you or the next person if you stack up pretty similarly upon applying. So be professional, be organized, ask questions, but don't be too incessant. This is ultimately a business transaction, so you might think it might not matter how you show up, but actually the broker is going to take away who made them feel good.
When I have tenants applying, I want to go with people that are qualified financially, but I also want to go with people that are going to be enjoyable to do the deal with. Be a person that knows how to be good at talking to people in business. You know what I mean? Treat it like a job interview. When you're in a job interview, you don't want to dominate the interviewer. You want to gather information where you can decide whether the job's for you or not. But you also want to demonstrate that you're a good candidate as well. So it's this balance between, I want to advocate for myself. I don't want to be stomped on. I don't want to be steamrolled. I don't want to, be dominated, in this transaction. I want to be able to rent a place and feel good about it. And I need to ask my questions. but I also don't want to be like super duper annoying and like the type of tenant that's going to be like, so are they going to do this? Are they going to fix this? Are they going to do that? Are they going to do this? Because it's just, nobody wants to deal with that person. Have integrity. Like, do act in your personal life and whatever. If you don't think anybody's watching or whatever, like, act like people are watching.
You should walk into those visits with all of your documents already set to go on your computer. So if you go visit a place, you make a good impression with the broker, then you can leave and immediately apply, and all of your files are ready and set to go.
The most important thing is you come with your application materials ready. Is the single most important thing that you can do. So I don't want physical paper.
You don't want paper?
That's
With my bank statements?
stressful for me and stressful for you.
Yeah.
Right? But what I recommend is people have a folder on their desktop with their ID, their bank statements, their tax returns, their letter from employers, their letter from landlord, their pay stubs, right? All their supporting documentation.
Now, these next 2 points are a little bit ironic and oxymoronic, but alas, you need to be decisive because there's a ton of other people who are going to jump on the apartment. But you also have to be thoughtful and make sure that it's the right fit for you.
When you're looking for places to live, you definitely have to be like very sharp, very on top of what you're doing because things move fast. Because once you find something, you want to go and grab it. That's what I did, for instance. When I found my basement in Harlem, I figured, okay, yeah, that's the one. That's what I'm grabbing. And as soon as I, visited it, I talked to the landlord. It was on the spot. I said, yeah, I want it. Let me, I'll take it if you'll have me,
Right? So like speed is super important. Knowing what you want is really important. Because if you're going and you're seeing an apartment and you don't know exactly what it is that you're looking for, there's a lot of pressure being put on you and you may not know how to respond to that pressure. Because you're seeing a place and even if the agent isn't like breathing down your neck, you know that there's all these other people around that are going to be acting quickly. Well, how do I know whether this is even a good deal for me or not?
You're not going to jump on something that actually isn't the best fit for you. So how much money do you need to secure an apartment? It really depends what the rent is because that is going to predetermine how much money you have to put up front.
One thing that is a little more challenging, like coming from the Boston area, you pay like first month, last month in security, but in New York City, sometimes you have to pay more than that. And so there are all these additional costs sometimes that you might have to pay, which I felt was like, ooh, this is a lot coming out of graduate school. I think even if I weren't coming out of graduate school, it would be a lot.
So while you no longer have to pay a broker's fee, rents are probably bumped up a little bit in price. And you'll still need to put down a security deposit, which is usually 1 month's rent. So let's say you're going to rent a $4,000 one-bedroom apartment. You're going to have to put down the first month, the security deposit, and maybe even last month. So you're looking at $12,000 right there. And say maybe you don't have all that cash, but your family can help you. Here's Andre talking about that.
$3,000 apartment, you're 40 times the rent is $120,000. You make $110,000, let's say, for sake of example, right? Your household income is $100,000, but you're $20,000 off. So you don't make 40 times the rent. How do you get approved? Well, you can get a guarantor, right? Your parent can sign on, right? They just need to make like 80 times the rent. Now, sometimes if you're really close, that detail will be overlooked. Well, does the parent make something? Did they make something decent? Do they have some savings? I'm sure it'll be fine, right? So we just need all these documents from the parent as well. And they're like, great, my parents will provide these documents. And then they go home to their parents, and their parents were like, I will not be providing my documents. Thank you very much. I will show one bank account with $700. I will show one tax return, and I will show my ID. And if they don't like that, they can go fly a kite. And then they say to me, oh, well, my parents will show this stuff. And then I'll be like, listen, I just want to let you know that you're not the only person whose parents said that. And just take solace in knowing that it's okay, but it's not going to fly. It's a weird practice, theoretically, for a real estate agent to ask for all these documents. But in New York, the laws benefit the tenant. And it's really hard as a landlord to evict somebody that doesn't pay the rent. And then you have to look through and examine everything super carefully to make sure you're protected.
You may need to offer a little bit more in rent. We offered $50, I think, more per month in our rent to make sure they did some improvements to the apartment. This is much more common than the opposite, which is negotiating down. But alas, if you find a listing that's been sitting for some time and it doesn't seem to be going off the market, there might be an opportunity to lower the rent.
We didn't realize how seasonal housing is in New York. So April, it's fewer people are looking, but the supply is really low. In the summer, there's more supply, but a lot more people are looking. So it seems like there's pros and cons to each season.
If you want to negotiate the price, you can. Okay?
Down or up?
You can do both. Now, here's the way to know whether you're going to put yourself out of the running if you negotiate downward. And here's the way to know whether you're a fool and you're negotiating the price upward and you don't need to. You have to look at other apartments. And you have to see, well, where does this come in? How long has it been on the market? Well, this place has been on the market for 60 days. There's been no price reduction. Why not? It seems to me it's overpriced. But what you don't want to do is you don't want to tell the broker, well, I know this is overpriced because I had these 3 other places that I looked at. And through my analysis, because I'm the expert, not you, they show that they know that they're the best researcher. And they're like, well, I've run my comparables. Here they are. And I know that this price is too high and this is what it should be. And it rubs me the wrong way. And I'm like, this person is going to be unpleasant to deal with because they have to be the winner in the transaction.
Yeah, the big guy.
And that's a very difficult person to negotiate with.
Yeah.
Because they will make decisions to a fault that will be like self-sacrificial. I would much rather somebody who's just like, thank you so much. We'd like to put an offer. It's actually an under-ask offer. If that's not okay, no worries. This is my offer. They've done the research. They don't tell me about the research that they've done. They just go, say the price is, the apartment is $3,500. They can make an offer for $3,400. It's been on the market for a while, $3,350, maybe $3,300. They want to make an offer for under ask. Here you go. Here's my offer. Sometimes people overpay. And what's interesting is that they're not overpaying. Let's say you pay $3,500 for an apartment that theoretically should have only been worth $3,200. It's now been on a lease for $3,500. Stamp. It's gone down in history as being rented for $3,500.
Yeah.
That apartment is now worth $3,500. That's the way that capitalism works.
So you basically need to make an informed guess as to what is the market going to push rent-wise for an apartment. So if you're 1 block off of Prospect Park, you know that someone else is probably going to bid higher on the unit, and thus it probably makes sense to do so unless for some reason that listing has been sitting for a while because it's way over market rate for some reason. All right, the last piece of information here is to go through the lease and negotiate changes as applicable. The first thing you're going to do is just check who is on the lease. Is it the property owner? Does that align with what you've learned so far about this apartment? Now, you got to make sure to sit down and actually read the lease. It might be, 10 pages, might be 20, might be 30. But just remember that you're signing off on this thing and you're going to have to be confident in what every single detail says. And it's completely acceptable to ask questions about terms and see if you can negotiate them. For example, are pets allowed? Is there a weight limit? Can you paint the walls? Are they going to do any kind of improvements? Do you want to make them add an addendum to clarify that they'll be doing that work, which is what we did. So just run through it and know what you're signing off to. All right, here are the last few miscellaneous tips for navigating the housing market. Andre has this reminder when thinking about property management companies.
No one leaves positive reviews for management companies. It's not like restaurants. Because anytime someone experiences a positive thing with a management company, do you think they're going to go online and write a review about the management company?
No.
Absolutely not.
If you're thinking about affordable housing, you can check out the Housing Connect website, apply for a lottery, and see if you can win an affordable unit in the city.
It's hard to find true affordable housing. A lot of times there'll be areas where they expect the person's income to be 40 times of what the rent is. And you're making it practically impossible for that person to be able to rent the apartment. I know that there was several initiatives that the mayor had when he was first elected that he wanted to put in place to create more affordable housing. But unfortunately, those things haven't actually happened. And what they have created in terms of affordable housing, because of our AMI, the area median income, it's not really affordable. It's not, and it's like you can't have something listed as affordable housing where the lowest possible rent you would charge for a 1-bedroom, you would have to have an $80,000 income. That's not, so it's like, really.
Last but not least, you probably won't nail it on the first try.
So, I'm from Brooklyn, born and raised. If you're looking to get in, I wouldn't say go for your dream apartment right away. Get something that'll get your feet wet. You're able to look around, see your surroundings, meet people, and then once you get here, then you can find the real deals. Other than that, you're just like everybody else looking on the internet. You don't want to do that.
Follow How to Move to NYC on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube to get more moving advice from New Yorkers.